Now, just please note if you are using your computer, please be sure to mute your microphone so to cut down any background noise. And we will get started. So first, this is John Sagoda, the Associate Executive Director at TESOL International Association. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I will now turn the program over to Uli Schrader, who is the Chair of the Affiliate Network Professional Council. Uli?
Thank you, John. Good day, everyone. TESOL International Association's Affiliate Network Professional Council is pleased to present this webinar titled Africa TESOL, Past, Present, and Future Aspirations. Our speaker is Oprah Keynote. We are very pleased to welcome all of you to this webinar. My name is Uli Schrader, as John said, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Today's presentation will last 60 minutes and include a question and answer period. To answer a question, simply type your question into the box on the lower left side of your screen and then click on the send button. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Okan Efyang is an English lecturer in the Foundation Program, Qatar University, and has a PhD in Applied Linguistics from the University of Southampton, United Kingdom. He is the founder and president of Africa TESOL, past member of the Nominating Committee, past chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, past chair-elect of the English as a Foreign Language intersection of TESOL International, past president of Qatar TESOL 2014-2015. He is a frequent presenter at TESOL and other internationally recognized conferences, and his research interest areas are language teacher associations and foreign language anxiety. Okan, welcome to the program, and let's get started.
Thank you very much, Uli. Thank you, John. And welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you may be in the world. The title says Africa TESOL, Past, Present, and Future Aspirations. I'll begin by talking about language teacher associations in general, because we have a global audience here. Later in my presentation, I'll then go to Africa and be more specific. My outline is very simple. I'll look at what language teacher associations represent. I will also maybe cite 3 models from around the globe before I talk about Africa TESOL. The last thing is the future. I'll leave that into discussion between the attendees and myself. And I'm happy to welcome your questions. I'll be looking at the chat box to know what you're asking and then try to deal with them as they arise. Before we get started, I want to give you a taste of Africa in the 1960s. Back in the 1960s in my village, in Nigeria, instruction was in the local language for the first 3 years in primary school. Then from year 4 to year 6, it was purely in English. There was nothing to prepare students for the transmission. It wasn't until I joined the ELT world that I actually realized what happened back in the 1960s. It happened that the dropout rate was so high in year 4 that it was up almost 40% of students that passed from year 3 in the primary school to year 4. The boys went on to become fishermen. They followed their fathers to the fishing port. The girls followed their mothers to the farm and ended up marrying early. When I joined the world of ELT, I understand student evaluation using the Survey Monkey, which is what we now use to evaluate teachers. Sorry. Then, what happened was, if we had a teacher in year 4, and the students did not like what the teacher was doing, we didn't have to wait until the end of the term to evaluate the teacher. The evaluation was instant. Either the teacher was heavy-handed, or maybe he didn't know how to teach us in a way we could understand. What these little children did, the 8 to 10-year-olds will be at night. Two boys will sit on either side of the certificate, and as the teacher is walking home from wherever he may be, they will pellet him with the human faces. This was disgusting, but it was very effective because the very next day, either the teacher changed his teaching approach or he left the village. That is how we're evaluating students. I'm telling you this because there is so much going on in Africa that the world doesn't really know about. And it is up to us to now share what the practices we have in the continent with the rest of the world. So now back to our main talk of the day. What is an LTA? Language Teacher Associations. They represent bodies established to make useful contributions to the profession and to develop individuals. That is a simple definition. And I'm going to draw on the work of Dudley Reynolds, his recently published article, to argue this. First, Dudley referred to Peter Senger's, I'm not sure how that name is pronounced, Seng or Senger's, the 5 disciplines of Peter Senger's, to come up with his framework for engagement in the professional body. He mentioned system thinking, personal mastery, mental model, shared vision, and then team learning. So this will give us a good understanding of what LTAs do or what it's all about before we talk about Africa TESOL, and then be able to see whether Africa TESOL is aligned with some of these ideals. System thinking is about the components and the subcomponents, the interest groups, the committees, the governance committees that constitute the professional body. For the well-established bodies like TESOL, IATFO, the big ones that have been in existence for 30, 40, 50 years, these are really solid. For the young ones, we may not have all the subcomponents. It might just be a single component. The second one is about personal mastery. And this is about the individual being developed. So when an individual is developed, he adds value to whatever he or she is doing in his place of work, not necessarily in language teaching, but in any endeavor. Then Dudley also referred to the mental model, which helps those working in language associations to identify directions, to create a vision, the pathway for progress. And if there are obstacles to be encountered, they will then know how to remove the obstacles or deal with the roadblocks. Because the mental model shapes understanding of what can be accomplished. Without this mental model, it might be more difficult for a language teacher association to accomplish its goals. Then the fourth one, the shared vision and the team learning, is more the kind of go together. Who do we share the vision with? The leaders and the members, the organizers and the members, those who are running the association and those who are just members. It's not like the runners or the leaders know it all. They have their vision, and then the members do not share this vision. So with a shared vision, a language teacher association will be able to perform better and achieve its goals. And then the last one, which is team learning, is the same thing. The leaders and the members working together to achieve a common goal. So these 5 disciplines Reynolds referred to enable language teacher association to prepare for changes and challenges. So they're very, very important. The next question is who and by who do we have language teacher associations? It's for us teachers, language teachers, and by language teachers in most cases. For example, some associations may have non-language teachers working for the common good. TESOL International, for example, has an office, has a secretariat, and has administration staff. these may not necessarily be language teachers. So it would be wrong for me to say by language teachers for language teachers. But basically, it's for language teachers. When we talk about professional development, it's about individual growing. And it's about individual growing. Sorry, there's a background noise here. I can't really help it. I'm not in my domain. I'm in Morocco for a conference, so I apologize for whatever noise you may hear. I'm in a public place where connectivity is good. Okay. And professional development. This is about individuals growing in their profession. And language teacher associations provide a platform for them to grow by offering opportunities for members to disseminate research findings and for members to share innovative teaching approaches where others can also learn from. And then overall, it helps in professional development of members. The fourth thing is the leadership pathway. This comes in different ways. I'm going to give an example drawing on the Latin American LTA, the Mexican TESOL, MEX-TESOL. So I'm not going to dwell on this so much. Leadership pathway. Sometimes leaders are, so they're born leaders and they're made leaders. Individuals may not even realize their potential unless someone nudges that individual. I, for example, I never thought I could be in a leadership position when I joined TESOL International, but something triggered, which I'm going to talk about when I'm talking about Africa TESOL. But on 2 occasions, somebody told me, you could do this. And I said, no way. There's no chance on earth I can do it. The person just said, go ahead, you can. And I tried it and it worked. So that could be one way. The other way could be the leaders actually creating a structure whereby aspiring leaders, budding leaders can be encouraged to come into the leadership structure and then nurtured all the way to the pinnacle. So the final one is mentoring redefined. These are all components that help to make associations function smoothly. I am going to draw on Andy Curtis and Esther DeYoung, our 2 past presidents, and what they did, and then I'll share that with you in the article Formalizing Language Teacher Leadership Development, just the way they went about the mentoring process. And that way we can then end this part of the speech, and I will move on to Africa TESOL. So I call it Mentoring Redefined. The focus here is on the experiences of our 2 past leaders, TESOL International Association leaders. You know, in their relationship, it wasn't the traditional mentor-mentee. Andy Curtis was the past president in 2016-2017 cycle. Esther DeYoung was the president-elect. So the past president and the president-elect had this arrangement, which traditionally would have been mentor-mentee relationship. But then there was a shift in the informal body system to a more structured yet flexible engagement in leadership development. For example, the TESOL Board of Directors has a body system whereby new board members are mentored by the old board members. And this is flexible to a certain extent. And we also have the traditional mentoring system or the coaching, whether you call it body system, coaching, or mentoring, they are the same or similar in meaning. We also have in TESOL International the Leadership Mentoring Program, which helps members to become more involved in the work of the association. And to increase inclusivity, preference is given to individuals from underrepresented groups within TESOL. So the body system in a nutshell, this is like working together to support each other. You know, for example, we have this in different places of work: peer tutoring, peer observation, peer assisted learning. And like I mentioned earlier, TESOL Board of Directors uses the board buddy system to support new board members. Mentoring or coaching, this is more like guiding and supporting trainees to ease them through difficult transitions. In this case, one partner has more experience in the profession than the other. And it's also shaped by the personalities of the people involved. So I'm going to now give you what Andy Curtis and Esther De Jong did in their relationship, which is why I'm saying mentoring redefined. You know, what they did was, first, they had their weekly 1-hour meeting, and then the system was also flexible yet structured. So, flexible yet structured. Similar to the coaching mentoring style. They had live Skype discussion using webcam once every month. And you know that voice call and video call are very different. When you have a video call, you feel closer to the person you're talking to, unlike voice call. And before the meeting, they usually will have suggested topic for discussion. It could be either Andy or it could be Esther. And this suggested topic then provided them with the focus and framework for leadership discussion. Another thing they did was to keep a written record. Both were taking notes, which they shared a few days later. And what they shared were the extracts, extracting the main points that had the most meaning and most relevance for the two of them. So overall, their experience showed that it showed a shift from the mentee-initiated topics about the roles and expectations and the mentor-directed responses to a mutually generated topics discussed during their meeting. Initially, it was like a mentee-initiated, mentored responding. But then it shifted to, it could be either Andy, it could be Esther, and then, so it wasn't like a superior and subordinate relationship. So this was very successful because it brought about willingness to work together. It was also effective because it was active and there was constant negotiation of roles, expectations, and then mutual support. So what arose from this sort of relationship was they were not trapped within the terminology trap, this mentor-mentee, and then the mentor-mentee shift was like a continuum. Today, Andy could be the mentor, the next day he could be the mentee. The same for Esther. They kept records, and the process helped them to develop organically. You know, there was consistency and structure to their sessions. So this is the kind of things I wanted to share with you before we start to talk about, you know, Africa. The next thing is about the models from around the world. I will look at the leadership model from TESOL, and then I will also look at a mobile conferencing from SPEL, that is Pakistan, and I'll briefly mention collaborating LTAs from Nepal, example. So then we move on to Africa TESOL. First, Araceli, well, she likes to be called Araceli. Her first name is Leticia Araceli Serrano. Araceli is her second first name. And our moderator here, Ulrich, they have a recent publication on leadership emergence within TESOL. So I'm going to use the example to show the leadership pathway I mentioned earlier. So theirs was an empirical study And this was this involved 6 participants, just to show how leadership can be groomed, nurtured, and then supported until they get to the very top. And so in that publication, both discuss how this is done in the Latin American context. They used an open questionnaire to get their whatever information they wanted. So it mentioned about volunteerism, because you have to first volunteer to become a leader. And then the next step was you become elected as a leader. So you're not just going to emerge from nowhere and become a leader. So you volunteer and just put in your own, make a contribution, give your quota, and then you become a leader. And then once elected as a leader, you learn in the process, which takes us to the third one, which is the assumption of leadership role within the association. And this was mostly with the aim of improving peers' teaching practice and profession. And finally, they moved into the fourth one, which is the leaders becoming aware of their responsibilities. And this they did by reading books, taking courses, which help them to exercise more effective leadership. So you can see this model is very different from maybe other models that you may be familiar with. And the fourth phase is very important, because becoming a leader wasn't just being a leader and doing the same thing day in, day out. But you had to now read, take courses to learn more and to be able to implement or to function effectively in your position as a leader. So what I got from the keywords that I got from this paper from Araceli and Uli were collaboration, communication, responsibility, commitment, team building, and then common characteristics for effective functioning of an LTA. So this, in a way, is kind of giving you background information on what LTAs do or how they deliver leadership opportunities and professional development opportunities to their members. So the 4 stages they found at the end of the study was that first, there was recruitment, which was like pre-leadership, pre-service. And then there was supervision and training, which was like in-service. There was also recognition of leaders, which was an ongoing thing, or maybe at the end of the tenure of that leader. And some leaders actually went on to serve after they finished their time, which is called post-service. They could serve as speakers at conferences, or they could serve as chapter heads, or they could serve as committee heads. So that is an example of leadership development. The next one is about mobile conferencing. And this example is from Pakistan, from the Society of Pakistan English Language Teachers. This is a bit unique, but very useful in the sense that the cultural context might be restrictive to a certain extent, depending on where you are. But they were able to overcome the cultural restriction by taking the conferences to the regions. So what they did was, they have a given conference, they present in one city, and then they take the same conference again with the same theme, with the same speakers to a different city. And they finish, they move to another one, and they move to another one. And the major benefit was for the female teachers who would otherwise not be able to travel far to the big cities to attend the conference, to actually have the conference in their domain. So Fauzia and Shakira reported this, and the examples they gave was Karachi was one of the cities, Lahore was another one, Islamabad was another, and Abbottabad. This is a bit similar to what Africa TESOL is doing, except that we're not using the same conference theme or the same speakers. So I'll get to that when we talk about Africa TESOL. In addition to benefiting the female participants, the foreign delegates who attend the conference as speakers also experience traditional hospitality and the different cultures of the different regions of the country. So this is an example of mobile conferencing. So finally, collaborating LTAs. This is the Nepal English language teacher model, as reported by Laxman Nawale. What they do in NELTA, which is Nepal English Language Teacher Association, is to liaise with other language teacher associations and then work together to support each other. So mention has been made of Japan Association of Language Teacher, Bangladesh English Language Teacher Association, Thai TESOL, that's Thailand, and All India Network of English Teachers. So they in Nepal will send some members to a conference given by either Jot or Belta or Thai TESOL, and maybe they have discounted conference fee, or they're giving some reduced rates at whatever, there's some benefits to it. And when it is time for NELTA to hold its own conference, it will extend similar benefits to that association too. So this way they have exchange of members going to different conferences and learning how to do things, which could be a mentoring process, I would say. They also plan collaborative activities, which help the different language associations to realize what they can achieve and maybe become even more aware of what is impossible when they have ambitions that are maybe too much. So they go into an understanding by having a memorandum of understanding with them, these LTAs, because they believe that the sum is greater than the parts. But overall, it allows for exchange of expertise and knowledge. And then they also learn organizational skills from the better organized associations. And the key message here is it minimizes the identity of the LTA as a professional institution, at the same time increasing its identity as a professional network. So that is the background. Now to Africa. I'm just looking at the chat box. I don't know if there's any question there. I haven't seen any. Before the seminar, 3 questions were asked, and I will deal with them as I discuss Africa TESOL. The first question was, what communication strategies do you use to bring people from diverse contexts and geographical locations? The second question was, what are the interactions between language learning and societies? And the third question was, how open are Africa TESOL affiliates, especially, or for example, Sudan TESOL Sudan, for the public to become active members, because the same names present in each and every local conference. I'm going to answer these 3 questions before I start talking about Africa TESOL, and then maybe in my discussion of Africa TESOL, we can bring them up again. What communication strategies do you use to bring people from diverse contexts and geographical locations? In a nutshell, I would say resources and readiness. Africa is multicultural. We have English-speaking, French-speaking, Portuguese-speaking countries, and the way we operate, as I would mention in my model, is we go to the affiliates. The affiliates must show readiness and must have the resources to receive us before we go to them. So that is one way we bring people from diverse content, their readiness and the readily available resources. That is one way we bring them into our fold. The other way is to also reach out to them and see if they might be interested in joining us, and using our own network within the continent to reach out to those who may not be aware of our existence. The second question, interaction between language learning and society. I'm not sure what what the question is trying to address, but I'm looking at it as very general. My understanding is, what are the interactions between language learning, maybe in the classroom, and maybe the immediate society, which is outside the classroom? By that I mean, do learners actually use the language outside the classroom? This is where I understand this question. But to answer it, I would say, as teachers, what we do in the classroom should mirror the needs of the society, because the classroom is a microcosm of the larger society. As language teacher associations, we develop conference themes and sub-themes along the needs of the society, along the needs of our professional community. So, and we also want to find out if the society is monolingual, or is bilingual, or multilingual. So these are the factors that may affect interactions between language learning and the immediate society. So if the person that asked this question is in the audience today, maybe you can tell me whether I've answered your question, or maybe we can revisit this question again. The third one is how open are affiliates, for example, TESOL Sudan, for the public to be active members? The person asking the question pointed out that the same names present in each and every local conference. I don't work in Sudan, but I know TESOL Sudan very well, and I know the people that have been running the association for some years now. My answer to the person who asked this question is, TESOL Sudan is as open as any other association for the public to become active members. They're not closing their doors against active membership. If you express interest in joining the association, you'll be welcome. And the second part, whereby the same names and faces are seen in every local conference, that is something that I'll see as reward for hard work. If you submit a proposal that is good enough, I don't see why your proposal will be rejected. That is one. You have to belong in. If you're not willing to learn how to write a proposal outside the association, it's best that you get involved and then you learn how to write a proposal. That way you can be sure your proposal will be accepted every year. The second one is, members of language teacher associations give their time, sometimes money, for the common good. And one way to reward these individuals is to at least give them the platform to present, which is what the association is doing anyway for members of the profession, providing opportunities for professional development. Charity, they say, begins at home. So if they see the same names, the same faces presenting every year, it means they're very active. And then it's a good opportunity for you to get involved and be active too. Okay, so now to Africa TESOL. We're 30 minutes down the road, so we still have like 20 minutes to talk about Africa TESOL. I'm going to talk about the birth, the unique model, and collaboration with the national and international language teacher associations. Africa TESOL's first conference was in 2016. but it started for 6 years or so earlier in 2010. The concept started in 2010 at Boston, and that was my first TESOL conference. At the Boston convention, David Noonan, Kathy Bailey, and Andy Curtis gave a plenary on global affiliates. I was in the audience. Africa had 4 affiliates. I was very sad. In my culture, men crying is a sign of weakness. But I remember I cried in the audience. And when I went back to where I came from, the first thing I did was to write a letter to the then president, asking him to explain why Africa had 4 affiliates. I mean, I wasn't expecting a response. I was a student. I was a doctoral student then. And looking at TESOL, it was very intimidating with thousands of people there. I was a nobody. So I wasn't expecting any response. Brock Brady was the president then. 2 weeks later, he responded in giving me detailed efforts that TESOL International had made and what he, as an individual with Peace Corps, had done for Africa. I read through this and I was personally ashamed of myself as an African, sitting there and shouting, why is Africa not represented? Then the question was, what are you going to do about it? That was the question I asked myself. You want Africa represented? Do something. I wrote to the executive director, telling her that I want to be involved. I didn't know how, but I would like to serve on a committee. And because I was talking about Africa, I thought inclusivity was the issue, that I would like to serve on the diversity committee. And I was welcomed with open arms. And I joined the diversity committee. I was also being very careful not to be Afrocentric, to go there with my African agenda. I served for 4 years on the diversity committee. And first, I thought the best thing to do first is to do something for majority of the membership before you now think of doing something for the minority. So that will actually lend credence to your effort. While Martha Cummings was the chair of the committee, I was the chair-elect, and Merva Lowe was the past chair. And now I'm going to take you back to that leadership pathway. I joined the diversity committee. I was new. And then as Merva was rotating off, she just said, okay, I nominate you as the chair-elect. And I said, what, me? What do I know? I know nothing. She said, nope, you know something. You know more than something. You are going to be the chair-elect. I did not argue. That is how my leadership pathway started. And in our time, as chair-elect, Martha Cummings as a chair, TESOL was able to implement the K-12 day, which is something the diversity committee fought for teachers in America, the K-12 teachers, to have a special day for $100. It was $100, but unfortunately it's gone up maybe with inflation. The last one was $250, Atlanta. So having done that, I felt more comfortable to think, okay, let me now think of the minority groups. And I mentioned it to the executive committee then that I would like to form a regional body in Africa. And I would just need their moral support. And they said, go for it. I used the listserv, TESOL listserv. By this time, the number had increased to 11, the number of affiliates, no, maybe 12. I wrote to them asking them, can we come together to form a continental body? Only 4 responded. And that is how it started. Just 4. So I had Senegal, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Cameroon. They were the founding affiliates of TESOL Africa. So now that we've got the founding affiliates, 4 countries coming together, what next? The next step was to think of an activity that could bring us together. And then I approached Ayman, who is the vice president of Africa TESOL. He was the vice president of TESOL Sudan then. And they were having their annual conferences. I said, why don't we just have Africa TESOL instead of your annual conference? He provided a platform for Africa TESOL to be launched. That was in 2016. So that was our first conference, and we had 3 past TESOL International presidents. Dina Bore was there, Christine Kum was there, Ilenson was there to give us support. And TESOL International was very generous, even though it doesn't give out money, but it was generous enough to sponsor the conference back with $750, which we were grateful for. That is how we started. We had a structure in place as well. We had people who were president, vice president, several positions, because I didn't want to be seen as running the show while I was outside Africa. So for 1 year, we allowed people within the continent to run Africa TESOL. The first conference attracted 300 delegates from 10 countries. And by this time, we had grown to 11 in number, 11 affiliates. The second conference was in Rwanda, 2017. We had 400 delegates from 14 countries. And then we had people from 6 countries outside Africa. And last year, we had a conference in Senegal. We had over 400 delegates, with delegates from and presenters from 18 African countries, and also presenters from 7 countries outside Africa. By this time, our number had grown to 22. So this is how Africa TESOL started. At the moment, we have a steering committee running the association's affairs. But it's not everybody on the steering committee that is active. We have 5 individuals that are actually holding Africa TESOL together. I'll call them the 5 pillars. I am one, the founder, the president. Ayman Al-Sheikh, I'll call him co-founder because I started with him. He's the vice president. We have Harry Kucher, the president of ITFO, which we see as our strategic liaison man. He liaises with the international bodies to, for us to bring about collaboration. We have Hind Elias as the professional development coordinator. She's very active. And then Amira Salami, our newsletter editor. Unfortunately, out of the 5 pillars I've mentioned, only one is resident in Africa. Emin and I are in Qatar. Hind is in Saudi Arabia. Harry is in the United Kingdom. So this, again, I see as a problem. Being outside the continent and running a continental body. So this, again, takes us back to what I talked about, the initial leadership pathway, how we can support individuals to assume leadership positions, and what is in it for people to see as benefits of giving their time and effort to grow a language teacher association. So the unique model that I mentioned here is, 1, we do not have a secretariat like a traditional language teacher association. We don't have a country that we can say Africa TESOL is situated in this country. It's more like a virtual association, and we do not have leaders that kind of come through the membership, because our membership for now is the members of our affiliate. If you're a member of a given affiliate, you are a member of Africa TESOL. So we have affiliate leaders who are in the leadership structure, and they help us to grow Africa TESOL. That is what is unique about Africa TESOL. All the people in the leadership position are leaders of affiliates, except those of us who are outside the continent. The rest that are there are representing their various countries. We asked, after the initial year where there was very little activity in Kigali, when we had a second conference, I said, if you have any action plan, if you think something is wrong with this association and you can fix it, come in and fix it. We're not going to define to you what your role is. You say, this is what I want to do. I'm coming in to do this. And we welcome you to come and solve that problem or grow that idea that you have in mind. And mobile conferencing, unlike the Pakistani example, whereby the conference moves from one city to another with the same speakers, the same theme. Excuse me. Sorry, I have a cold. I arrived in Morocco yesterday. It's quite cold here in the desert. So I call ours mobile conferencing in the sense that we go to different countries, different years. Unlike the big names that have the conference in the same city, same country every year. And we liaise with the local host. If they have the resources to host a conference, rather than have an annual conference, we say, now you're going to have an international conference. So we, Africa TESOL, will deal with the international delegates, and then the local host will deal with the local delegates. They'll provide the structure, like the venue, and then source the local speakers, both featured and a keynote or plenary, and then we get one keynote from outside the continent and the featured speakers from outside the continent. And then we have a conference. So this has worked for us for 3 years now, and we'll continue to use this model until we have solid structures in place. Our next conference is in Nigeria, which is in August. So we're still doing the same thing, you know. And the Nigerian Association, English Language Teachers Association of Nigeria, ELTAN, they've secured a venue for us. And then they've got their local plenary speaker and 2 featured speakers. And then we bring the rest from outside. And then that's how the conference works. What is also unique about Africa TESOL is that we don't even have money. We don't have a bank account. We don't have a single dollar. But year in, year out, we still manage to pull off one conference after the other. We don't have because we don't have. That's just the truth. But we keep thinking of how we can continue to do this, to provide opportunities for our fellow teachers in Africa who are unable to travel to maybe Europe or America or other African countries to get the experience. So that's what makes us unique. And finally, I think we have a few minutes left now, maybe 6 minutes. I'm going to talk about collaboration with national and international associations. We've had some language teacher associations working with us to help teachers in Africa. For example, TESOL France, under the leadership of Jane Ryder, we're able to establish a technical collaboration with the Senegal affiliate, ATES, Association of Teachers of English of Senegal. So TESOL France and ATES of Senegal kind of worked together. They had a technical group using WhatsApp to support teachers in Senegal. That was a major success. The other partner that we have is IATEFL. For 2 years running now, IATEFL special interest groups have been supporting our conferences. Last year in Dakar, Senegal, the Young Learners and Teenage Special Interest Group and Global Initiative Special Interest Group were there to organize a pre-conference event. And this year in Abuja, the Research Special Interest Group and the Global Initiative Special Interest Group will be there again to organize a pre-conference event. This pre-conference event does not cost Africa TESOL anything, and we don't even have any money to pay for anything. So IATEFL organizes the speakers to give workshops for 1 day and supports the speakers that are bringing to provide the workshop. So this is the kind of strategic partnership that Africa TESOL is looking for. And what arose from this is that the Global Initiative Special Interest Group has gone beyond just collaborating with Africa TESOL. It's also collaborating with a national association. in Guinea-Bissau. Linda Ross has been able to work with the special interest group along with the Guinea-Bissau Language Teachers Association, and they have developed an ELT curriculum for the country. That to me is a big deal. They didn't have one before, but now they have an English language teaching curriculum for the entire country, courtesy of this Global Initiative Special Interest Group. So our conferencing is also a collaboration between Africa TESOL and the affiliates, because we learn from them, they learn from us. I would say we go to the local host with our international experiences of hosting conferences or attending international conferences, and we make suggestions on the structure of the conference. We also work together to find balance between having agreed number of presenters to accept based on merit, because we have adapted rubric adapted from TESOL International, and then also providing opportunities for people. So when we send out a call for papers, we send out sample proposals, a good proposal, an average proposal, and poorly written proposal. And we send the rubric, we share it with all the affiliate leaders, share this with your members, so when they're writing a proposal for a conference, they should tailor it along these lines, and then they stand a better chance of being accepted. So in a way, we are supporting them to learn the process, and then when we go to this particular host country, we also see the challenges that they face. But not much we can do at this point, because we don't have the resources to change things. We just have to accept it the way it is. And I keep telling my friends, if we have to host a conference under a tree, we'll go ahead and do it. You do see some pictures of maybe some countries in Africa where children are studying under the tree. So if we have to host a conference under the tree, we will, as long as we provide opportunities for the teachers to grow. So I'm going to end here, and then I'm ready to take questions, because I'm still looking at the chat box. I haven't seen anything. So I'm ready to take questions. I don't know, maybe, oh, sorry, I think the questions are here. Oh, okay. Let me see. Yes. Greetings. Okay. I think it's about the technical problems we're having. So nothing. Hello, John. Hello, Uli. Hello, Uli.
Yes.
Are
Hello.
you there? I'm going through the chat box.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. I'm going through the chat box. And okay, just a comment from Araceli. Okay, Elizabeth here has mentioned something about the models. And then Hein talked about collaboration. And then, okay, then Hein mentioned the mentor-mentee models. Now, question, how can we use these good ideas? What are the ways of helping trainers to be flexible and to be able to use components you describe? Hello, this is Elizabeth England. I'm not sure which area this is addressing. What are the ways of helping train us to be flexible and to be able to use components you describe? I'm not sure why that came in. If it's about the leadership flexibility, I don't know. Elizabeth, are you there? Please, can you shed more light on your question? Hello, Elizabeth. Okay, mention being part of the.
So Okan,
was there?
Okan, she's
Yes?
responding through the chat box. And she supplemented her comment with that you provide some very good examples, but in terms of flexibility, how to use the model described in specific contexts, like how can they be adapted to different kind of contexts. And she was
Oh,
also, yeah,
this,
following
yeah,
on
go on.
Uli had posted a comment about examples in other contexts where groups of other language teacher associations are collaborating together.
Yes, I don't know if that answers it, the collaboration, the flexibility. If it's this unique model Elizabeth is referring to, the unique model of Africa TESOL, I think what gave rise to the unique model is probably the lack of financial sustainability, because, like they say, necessity is the mother of all inventions. If we walked into $10,000 or $100,000, we might not be able to do this. We might just go ahead and copy what has been established. And I don't know where Elizabeth is, whether she's in the UK or in Europe or in America, where the local situation is very different. In terms of flexibility, I think it got a lot to do with the people who are involved in the association. Flexibility in terms of your time, the time you are giving to the association, flexibility in how you accept new members, and flexibility in being able to listen to the other person, not like you know it all and the other person doesn't know anything. So I don't know if that is addressing Elizabeth's question. I don't know.
This is John. I think, well, Liz doesn't have a microphone, but she's posting through the chat box. So it looks like you've answered her question.
I'm going through the box. Yeah. I'm looking at them. Just scrolling down. Okay, Elizabeth is talking about the pre-recorded keynote for Layun. Okay, that's nice. Hi, Elizabeth. I'm in Layun, and the opening keynote is just going on behind me here. Apologize for the noise you hear from the background. There was no other way I could have done this except here in the conference venue. Yeah.
So Liz just posted a additional comment, is that sometimes she has noticed sort of a rigidity in thinking, if you may, around how different leaders will lead their organization, and perhaps, what she was looking for is examples of how to avoid that rigidity in thinking and being more open and flexible.
Well, rigidity in the sense that you claim to know it all, that you have a vision, and then you're not letting people buy into your vision. That is not helpful. And then no individual has exclusive right to claim to know what is good for other teachers or other professional colleagues. So that is where rigidity comes in. And rigidity might also come in another way, whereby you just want to be a leader. You want to gloss your CV by just being a leader without actually performing or delivering. So you have to allow people to buy into your vision. If they don't buy into your vision, that means your vision is faulty. It may not work for that local context. But then you try to see their own side of the story, try to buy into their vision and work with them, because you're not going to be alone. You can't lead a body if you think you are the repository of knowledge, you know it all. No. So if they're not buying into your vision, something is wrong with your vision. You need to revisit the drawing board and come back with something new. So that is one way to deal with rigidity among leaders.
Okay, this is Uli speaking. Well, there's one more question from George. Can any African affiliate join TESOL Africa? Or Africa TESOL, sorry.
That's, has any other affiliate joined TESOL Africa?
No, how can they join? They should contact you, I suppose.
Africa, it's just an expression of interest by email, that's all. And then we have a form for them to fill. Our requirements are very minimal. You have to just, at the end of the year, you give us an annual report stating what activity you've done in the year, maybe seminar or workshop or something, just a brief one-paragraph report. And then once every 3 years, somebody from your association should attend Africa TESOL conference. Those are the two requirements. And then you join, we have a WhatsApp group for all the leaders of our affiliates. So they do chat. If we have anything to share, we post it on the WhatsApp group and it goes to the different members of the different associations. That's how we work.
Okay.
So it's so easy.
Do you have a slide that shows your email address?
Right now, okay. I don't, but I'm going to provide another PowerPoint slide because the one I provided, the comment was it was a bit too just 4 slides, and so after this presentation, I'm going to give an updated PowerPoint slide. So here I'm posting my email address here in the chat box.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if that helps. Yeah, I've posted that.
And I think someone earlier also posted the URL for the Africa TESOL website. So what we can do is we'll be sending out information to all the people who registered in advance with the recording of the webinar as well as a link to a survey. So what we can also do is include the URL in that information that goes out to all the registrants.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. I think that the time is up. Okan, do you have another final comment?
I'm just open to suggestions because this has been a vision, my passion, my dream, and I'm not going to let it die. But I know we're just 3-4 years old. When people make comparisons with TESOL International, with TEFL, they've been existing for 50 years. So it's unfair comparison. When people tell me, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, I just say, come in and do it. So we're going to grow slowly, and eventually the future landscape is bright as far as I'm concerned. The future is bright because there's so much in Africa. We just want to get this out to the wider world to see. So if there's anyone out there that can help us to get a publisher that can give an open access to the proposed journal we want to launch, I'll be very happy. I've approached some big names. They said the cost of production, there's no market for it in Africa, so it's been a problem. And we cannot have a journal that we ask the teachers in Africa to buy because they would not be able to afford it. We just want a host that will give open access to teachers in Africa. So if you have the network, if you know any publisher that can help us host Africa TESOL Journal, we publish twice a year, and open access, that is a big deal. It will be a big deal to us. We'll greatly appreciate it. And if you want to give us technical support, because our website is very basic, we use volunteers for everything. If you want to help us with technical support to spruce it up and make it look more attractive, that would be a big help because that's the only place. That is our only presence, the website. So those are the 2 major problems we have right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Okan. We're going to conclude today's webinar right now. Today's presentation was titled Africa TESOL, Past, Present, and Future Aspirations. In the next, on Monday, you'll receive a short survey monkey about this today's session, and we would appreciate your feedback. Also, the announcement, as John Segoto's already mentioned, about the URL for Okan and Africa TESOL, and also the recording, the announcement of the recording of the session so that you can listen to it again or at your leisure. We would like to give a special thank you to our presenter, Okan Young, who is currently in Morocco, although he lives in Qatar. He made a special effort and arrangements in Morocco to present today. Thank you very much. And we'd also like to thank John Segota of the TESOL Central Office for coordinating the technical aspects of the transmission of this webinar. And to all of you for participating and being present. Thank you very much, and we can continue this discussion through the MyTESOL website, the affiliate leaders, or the TESOL network. Thank you very much. And this is the end of the program. You may now disconnect.
Thank you.